And hello and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, thanks so much for being here. I hope you enjoy the show. Well, I have another terrific guest for you today. I hope you enjoy it. He's wonderful, and I'm so thrilled he's here. His name is Billy Dicosta, and he's the artistic director and co-founder of the New Haven Academy of Performing Arts and the Cabaret on Main, and he's also the vice president and co-founder of Broadway on Main. And Billy, thanks so much for being here. Such a pleasure.
My pleasure as well. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad that you had, like I said before, it was so wonderful. You came so well reviewed, and I said, oh my God, I just have to have you as a guest.
Thank you. I hope that I can live up to it.
And as we had mentioned, the viewer is really important to me, just like your audience is.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's talk about your background. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I'm from this area my whole entire life. I'm Connecticut born and raised. I grew up in East Haven pretty much my whole entire life. I'm the baby of a large Italian family with 6 kids. My family is actually kind of like the modern day Brady Bunch.
Okay.
My parents were both married before, and they came together when the kids were very, very young and blended their families together, and then they had me, which is the glue that kind of holds it all together. But there's no steps or anything like that. We're all family. My mother says the only steps in the house are the ones that lead to the second floor. You're all my kids, whether you came out of me or not. You're my children. So it was a wonderful experience growing up, and I have a lot of support from them. But I grew up in a town that, as a child back in the 80s and 90s, being a boy that sang and danced and wanted to do this kinds of thing for a living wasn't so acceptable. Being in a sports-oriented Italian machismo kind of space. So much like a lot of kids today, I didn't have to deal with social media, but I still had to deal with some severe bullying growing up through the process. And by high school, really had come to terms that I had to make the decision of what I was going to do, because I was so just unhappy, and I was definitely a depressed kid, and I was going backwards. I was being from a high honors student, loving everything, to failing and falling into the depression as kids who are bullied do.
Sure.
And so I was just blessed enough that I had some friends and family, both, that lived in West Haven, and they all welcomed me in. I lived from home to home a little bit, for like a vagabond out of garbage bags and stuff. My friend used to call me Billy Bags, because I would come in with all these garbage bags and stuff of clothes. And so it was there really that opened up this whole other world to me of theater and music arts, and just that theater's cool and music is wonderful, and it's a melting pot. I went from that to this town that was all different financial levels, and people, whether they were black, white, brown, Asian, Hispanic, everything in between, sexual orientations, and the jocks and the dorks and and the band members. Everybody came together, because that's what music is really about. It's about creating something special, and it's its own language and passion. And it was there that I met my voice teacher for 18 years, Lou Negri, and he took me under his wing and gave me my first lead in a musical. I played the baker in Into the Woods at a summer program, much like the one that I direct now. It was an intensive program that I did. My first summer with him, I think, was maybe like the end of my 10th grade, beginning of my junior year. And I just got bit by the bug. I loved it so much. I knew that it was what I had been dreaming of doing. And so I started taking voice lessons and doing all the things that you do to prepare as an actor and a singer and a dancer. And that went on to getting into colleges and moving on into the professional field.
Now, when you were in the professional field, did you go into New York City and pursue anything that way?
Yeah, so it's interesting. My journey is a little bit different than others. So when I was in my early 20s, I was doing theater, but I was actually working at a church for a long time as a cantor. That was really filling the music void in my life that I was looking for. And I was in a couple different relationships that didn't really go anywhere. And then I met my current husband, who I've been with for almost 20 years now. And I had kind of a dramatic summer one summer, and I had lost my cousin had passed away. She was killed in a car accident, and we were like brother and sister. We're very close in age. And then at the same time, my brother-in-law lost his life on my birthday. So it was a very traumatizing summer, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Sure.
And I just wasn't happy in my current job and what I was doing. And my husband said, I really think that you need to go to New York and start auditioning. I think that you're not going to be happy doing this the rest of your life. He's 10 years older than I am. He's like, I've had my turn, and I think it's your turn. And at that point, I'm still a very business-oriented person, and I was like, yeah, but we have a home to pay for, and I can't just leave my job and go in and out of New York City. How do we finance that? And he said, I don't care if I have to work 3 jobs to take care of you. I want you to go in and take this chance. I don't want you to have regrets in your life. Yeah. And so I did, and we were just really, really lucky that it doesn't always happen this way. But my first audition in New York City happened to be a cruise ship. And I had my first audition, and they said, can you come back tomorrow? And I was like, really? Sure. And I called him that day, and I said, I got a call back. And he's like, no, you got the job. And I was like, Neil, it's my first audition in New York City. Nobody gets a job on their first audition. Like, this is going to take a while, but it's wonderful that I even got that. And so I came back the next day, and I happened to make friends with the moderator, which is what I tell my students now all the time to do. We just had open discussions, and I was discussing with her that I had done theater a long time, but I also had a hospitality background that I've worked in both restaurant management and hotel management and such. And she said, do me a favor. When you go into that audition, I want you to let them know about yourself. Don't just sing and act in the audition. Let them know what your background is like. And I didn't know why then that she wanted to, but I did. And to make a long story short, I did get the job. But part of the reason I got that job is because when you work in the cruise industry, you're living amongst the guests, and you have to be able to know how to speak with people and deal with issues that may arise and such like that. And having a hospitality, that is the hospitality business, was really helpful for me. I'm sure there was many boys that auditioned that day. There was probably about 50 boys that got called back, and I was watching them all go home that day. And there were 3 of us that got chosen at the end. And that opened a career that spanned for about 6 years for me. And it was really wonderful. But then after traveling for such a long time, doing what I loved, it just got really hard on my relationship, and I needed to make a decision of, is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Am I going to keep leaving the person behind that I love for my passion, and how can I make the two gel together? And at that point, my husband was not a citizen of the country yet and still trying to become a citizen. Back then, you couldn't become a citizen being married to someone of the same sex until Obama came into play. So in 2012, after a 9-month stint of being away from each other, we knew that we needed to make a decision. And I had already been teaching singing lessons to some dancers that wanted to better their career and make more money, because singers tend to make more money than the dancers do. And I said, well, the only thing that I can think of doing in Connecticut is potentially opening a voice studio at the house and see if it clicks, if anybody even wants to take voice lessons with me or not. I hadn't had a lot of experience, and so I opened shop in the front room of my home with a little keyboard and put myself out there, used my marketing brain and my management background of how can I get myself out there, and adjudicated a singing competition and passed out cards to some of the competitors and such, and started getting people in. And then I said, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to know that I'm not just some hack teacher, that I really know what I'm talking about. I don't want to do just what my teacher taught me, because everybody's individual. And I sought out instruction, and I found this organization called International Voice Teachers of Mix that globally trains voice teachers. It's an amazing organization. Most of the board members and educators all have at least 30 years experience teaching. Some are educators. We have voice scientists that we work with, speech language pathologists, ENTs. So we're learning the science behind the whole thing, not just the singing aspect of it. And it taught me to teach in a very different way of thinking, and I get very quick results with my students. And so that spread like wildfire, that people were coming into the studio and they were having like 1 or 2 lessons, and all of a sudden I was fixing problems that they were having for years that other teachers weren't fixing for them. And so within a year, I had about 50 students, which is a lot to take on. And I was still working in restaurants. I was working 3 doubles a week at a restaurant, waiting tables, plus teaching 4 days a week at the house. So I was working 7 days a week, and I did that for 2 years straight, pretty much with almost no days off. And I took on an associate teacher, and I built a studio in my home, and I thought that was going to be the end all be all, and that's what I would do with my life. And then in 2015, my sister had recommended that I do a summer camp. And we have a mutual friend who owns a dance studio in East Haven, Gina Helland, and she owns Broadway Dance, and we got together and we did a summer camp together. and it was just like magic. Like you couldn't ask like a better scenario to happen. And we had 20-something kids our first summer, and it was just she, myself, and my husband. And we worked like dogs. We were up to like 3 o'clock in the morning, hilarious at nighttime, making sets and costumes, things I've never done before. I was sewing and hot gluing and all this kind of stuff. And then after that, I realized, you know what? I really don't want all these people coming in and out of my house.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And I love my students, but I like my own space, and, you know, seeing like their little brothers jumping up and down on my sofa and stuff like that didn't really thrill me. So I said, well, we've got to start to find a studio. We got to look for something, and it's really expensive. Rents are astronomically expensive for small businesses. And so she was kind enough and said, you know what, I've been in this space for, at that time, I was 20-something years at that time, and she said, what if you guys came here and you took my front studio, which was just one large room back then, and you split it, make it into a couple mini studios for yourself, and we do it on a handshake, and if it works out, you know, great. And if it doesn't, you always know that you have your home studio that you can go to. But I hate to see you bite off more than you can chew. Rents are expensive, and then you're stuck with this lease and all that kind of stuff. And then it just exploded from there, and we built this amazing relationship together. Our businesses piggybacked off of each other through the years. Now we have 7 staff members that work for us. I've trained all of my voice teachers myself that work for me, then they go on to the organization to get accredited. I've trained some other teachers in Connecticut as well, so I love teaching teachers to teach. And we're kind of odd in that situation. You can go to many other amazing music schools, but usually each teacher teaches kind of something different. We all teach one methodology. We have our own style of teaching because we're all different people, but the ultimate goal is the same thing. So whether you take voice lessons with myself or one of my teachers, there's going to be a lot of similarity there so that you're getting the same education across the board. And now that has gone on to all of our new things that you were talking about. So prior to COVID, we had been wanting a theater for a really long time. We had been using our dance room as a cabaret room every time we needed to put a show together, which was a lot of work, bringing in sets and stage pieces and lighting and sound and chairs and converting everything. And it worked for the time being for many years. Got the job done. But then right before COVID hit, our building is split into 3 suites, so the main studios are on the first floor. Then we have a little small studio in the front that I took over in 2017. And then we have a car dealership in the back. And the car dealership moved out in the middle of the night. One night they were just gone, and they left the garage door open. And I happened to be parking, and I walked in, and I was like, and I looked at my husband, and I was like, this is it. Because we didn't want anything that was not manageable. I was like, I can do this, I can make this happen. So I should backpedal for a second. That I also have a design background, so I do a lot of artistic different things. I was like, I can totally design this and make this into a theater. And so we hit the ball running. We signed the lease with our landlord because we didn't want anybody else to take the space. But then we realized it was an uphill battle for a little while, so we had to hire lawyers and go through zoning. Our space wasn't zoned for that. We had parking issues to deal with because there wasn't enough parking in the area, and had to have local businesses say that they would allow us to use their parking as well so that we could get approved. And we started to go through the process, and first COVID hit. And so we were paying rent for the space that we couldn't use for COVID. It helped us get through COVID because it allowed the kids to spread out in a garage, and we could have fresh air coming in the rooms and stuff like that, even though it wasn't the most ideal thing. And then we were able to work with, well, we weren't really able to, but we were planning on working with a local trade school and having the kids actually build the theater so that it would be an affordable project. And also I love giving anything back where kids can learn from something. So I thought kids doing something for kids would be spectacular. And then the day before they were supposed to start, we got notification that we couldn't get insurance for them.
Oh my goodness.
And the state doesn't insure them, even though they go to state schools. The state doesn't insure them to do off-site projects. So we had to go back to the drawing board. Luckily, I was able to get a loan. It took about 4 months, but I applied for an SBA loan, got the money, hired some contractors to do whatever I could afford to pay, because contractors are obviously a lot more expensive than having some local kids build it from a trade school. And then we did the remainder of the work that was within our pay level, in a sense. Sure.
Okay, let's hold that thought.
Yes.
I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
slow down.
Slow down and move over.
And move over.
When you see lights,
vests,
or reflectors,
please give us some room. Slow down and move over.
When you need us,
we've got your back.
Do you have ours?
You got our back?
You got ours? You got our back?
Please, slow down
and move over.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and again, as always, thanks so much for being here. And my conversation continues on with Billy Dicosta. And I know I interrupted you in your story,
keep going, by all means.
But I don't want to miss out on the New Haven Academy of Performing Arts,
Sure.
Cabaret on Main Theater, and Broadway on Main. So why don't we take a moment, let's talk about the New Haven Academy of Performing Arts. Let's bring that graphic up so we can put the website up on the television screen and tell us what that's all about.
So New Haven Academy of Performing Arts was the company that was founded out of our home, and it is now one of the largest performing arts academies in the state of Connecticut. We have won probably, I think actually when I've added it up, more awards than anyone in the area to date. And we teach voice lessons, acting lessons, piano, guitar, ukulele, drums, horns, and probably everything in between.
Oh my.
We're now starting to teach theater tech with our theater that has just opened, and then we collaborate all of our dance stuff that we do with our sister school that shares the upstairs space, which is Broadway Dance. And they actually choreograph alongside my husband all of our musicals and cabarets that we do in the new theater. So in the new theater, the theater opened in September of last year. It is called Cabaret on Main Theater. It's a very interesting space because it is the only theater to date in Connecticut that has an immersive style experience. And so if you can think of like the Van Gogh experience that comes around, our studio is kind of the same type of thing. So when you're sitting in our space, there is 280 degrees projections around you the whole entire time that you're watching a show. So instead of traditional theater where you would sit and watch a set and stuff behind everybody, you're in the show the whole entire time. And it's something to I don't even know the right words at the present moment. It's something to experience, because to see it on a camera or a picture, people walk in there and they leave and they're like, holy God, I've never gone through this before. This was amazing. Like, I feel like I was on almost like on a ride at Disney World. It's quite magical. And we do that now with, on average, 12 shows a year with our program. So we have shows through New Haven Academy of Performing Arts that we do. And then we now have our nonprofit, which you mentioned before, which is Broadway on Main. Broadway on Main is our outreach program with a focus in mental health awareness.
Oh my.
So we are always trying to pick opportunities to bring in theater in a way that helps people work through issues that they are going through in dealing with mental health. And so even the most simple show, like for this instance, this fall we are doing Elf the Musical. I look at Elf the Musical as a character that is going through mental health issues. He was an orphan who was raised by elves and Santa, and then finds out he has this father that doesn't want him and a mother who passed away. So there's a lot of underlying issues there to discuss and educate both our adult actors and our youth actors. It's a wonderful experience. And that has grown really quickly. We have a great community. We have, for the first time ever, instead of just our students doing shows, now we have community members coming in. This past year, some of our actual parents decided that they wanted to perform with their kids and got out of their own comfort zones. And for the first time, they were in our shows with us, playing parents in the shows. It's just a fabulous experience. We really pride ourselves in our community that we are a family environment. Our school is New Haven Academy of Performing Arts, and the initials are NHA-OPA. We call that NAHOPA, and everybody calls themselves NAHOPA Family. So usually at the end of a show, I say, thank you so much for coming at our school. We always like to say, you come as a stranger, but you've now become a part of the Nahopa family, and that we hope that you will come back for many more shows because you're one of our family members now. So we pride ourselves on that. We're all friends. We've known each other for a long time, so that helps.
You had mentioned before we started taping about children. You have a lot of children that participate in your organizations
Yes, a
there
lot.
and camps. Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. So on average in the school year, we see 280 students a week, the majority being elementary, middle school, and teens, but we do have adult students as well. And they come from all over the state of Connecticut. The farthest students we have right now traveling all come from New Canaan, which takes them about an hour and a half to reach us.
Oh, sure.
We have students of all financial and social backgrounds. We try to get scholarship funding wherever we can to help kids that can't come to us because we don't ever want to turn a child away due to money being an issue for their family. To me, as an educator, I think that every kid deserves to have arts in their life, and if they're in my building making friends and building valuable lessons that will last them a lifetime, it's more good that we're putting out in the world because they're in a safe environment and they're not out there doing bad things on the street, right? So it's a safe space for them. They get to be whoever they want when they are there. They are not judged. We have many students with autism. We are an autism-friendly environment. Which is spectacular to watch, seeing how they come out of this shell is spectacular. I have kids that walk in and they can't make eye contact and they talk to the floor when they speak to you. And within a couple years of doing theater, all of a sudden they're these well-spoken individuals who are playing leads in musicals and can get on a microphone and talk to an audience, and the parents are usually in tears because they find that nothing else has changed their child's life like theater can.
Your future, have you thought, we're in 2023,
Yep.
2024, 25, have you looked at long-term goals?
Yes, so I mean, our ultimate goal has always been to be at a 500 max ratio of people coming in. People have asked us if we want to, expand and do multiple schools around. I'm not looking to be, a McDonald's. I pride myself again on the family environment, and I think that we would lose that if we did that. I've also had a couple people reach out to me lately asking if we wanted to sell our business.
Oh my.
And I'm not ready to sell our business. This is my passion. It's what I plan on doing. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit the microphone. For many years to come. We want to leave a legacy behind with these children when the time is right. But now is not the time. Right now is the time of growing and changing lives.
What about the individual that is a performer that would like to be able to get involved or present themselves to you to be a part of your organization?
Yeah, so we hold auditions twice a year for our community theater programs. So I don't have the exact date yet, but the auditions for ELF will be at the end of the month of August, and then we'll hit the ground running. And so those will be all over the internet the second that they are ready. And then we'll hit the ground running for ELF. And then in the spring, we'll have another musical that we do, and we'll do the same thing. But they can come in as students as well. So we do a Halloween show, a Christmas spectacular, a Valentine's Day show, a Mother's Day show, and then also an end of the school year show. So there are lots of constant performance opportunities for students to take what they're learning and put it into a stage atmosphere and get feedback from an audience. What we don't do in our particular academy that many other traditional academies do is that we don't do recitals. So our shows are literally like a full production. There is sounds, costumes, lighting, set pieces, now all the video projections and everything. So it's a huge spectacular. That's why we say Christmas spectacular like Radio City, is because it literally is a spectacular thing. There's singing and tap dancing and everything in between.
Now, your establishment is in East Haven. I think we had discussed that.
Yes.
How did the town of East Haven embrace you when you were starting out, or how is it now?
I would say it's been a growing phase for both of us. That in the beginning it wasn't embraced as much as I would like it to be. However, throughout the last few years, because they are seeing the changes that we're making in youth's lives, and that it's a really good thing for the town to have arts in the town. We're the only game in town, and that arts also helps economic development, because now we have people from let's say New Canaan, driving all the way down to little old East Haven, and there really is no other reason for them to come. They either come and bring their kid and they go out shopping while they're there, or maybe they're coming to a show and they go to a local restaurant, right, and then come to see our show. So that helps also boost our economy. So theater is good no matter where it is. It's very, very helpful.
Have you thought about film or television or commercials, any kind of other things besides what you're doing right now, or are you happy where you're at?
Myself doing them?
Well,
Or
I
what do you
mean, is there any kind of video that might be happening at the establishment? Have you thought about doing any kind of commercials?
Yeah, so we have done live theater via the web during COVID. That's how we were able to keep everything going during COVID. We became our own TV station in a sense, and my husband took our casts and broke them down into 10 people and then had 20 people on a green screen behind them and pre-recorded everything, and then the kids were able to talk to the people on the green screen behind them, and that kept theater alive, and we were able to grow through COVID. But we do also teach film acting as well, so we have a couple other teachers, not myself, that teach on-camera acting for both youth and adults if they want to learn something like that and go into that field as well. To me, acting is acting, and you should learn all things encompassing, right, and learn how to be well-spoken and be adjustable to different environments. But I would definitely say that there is a difference between being on stage and being on camera. Camera tends to be way more intimate and small, as we're theater, we're always trying to sell it to the back of the house, so it's a little bit different experience.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We've run out of time.
That's okay. Thank you
I
for
really
having me.
appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
And I'm Deborah Gilbert. You've been tuned in Arts and Entertainment. In case you'd like to volunteer, or if you have a guest that you think would be great, please contact me. I'm at artsandentertainment@mail.com. Well, I hope you have a super day. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.